guys, it's Amber and I am back with part 2 of tips for labor. So in this video, the things I'm gonna say to you are mostly for when you are at you're at the hospital and you are in labor and you are waiting for your precious little one to arrive. So the first thing that I recommend when you get into the hospital, they're going to have you stripped, they're gonna have you change your clothes, they're gonna put you on the monitor, and then you're gonna meet your nurse. And the first thing I recommend is just making sure that nurse is someone who you mesh with and also someone who has seen the type of labor that you are aiming to have. So for example, I wanted a natural birth. So I made sure I asked my nurse, like, have you had experiences with a natural birth before? The most important thing is to make sure you have a nurse that is in line with your goals, because that way, as I mentioned in part 1 of the video, that nurse will be able to recommend certain things that are in line with your laboring goal. And you don't have to be rude about it, you don't have to be mean about it, but you do prefer for a nurse that knows what they are doing when it comes to the things that you want. The second thing I recommend, and a lot of people I feel like don't know that you can do this, you can ask them to turn the monitor down. So the monitor that they will hook onto your stomach, and that is how they can tell baby heart rate and when you are contracting, how baby's responding. It's right next to you. Like, you're in bed and the monitor's right here and it's loud as hell and you're boop, 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 all these sounds, and you are allowed to ask them to turn the monitor down. Half the time the nurse will not be in the room with you. They can see everything from outside of the room. So ask them to turn the monitor down before they leave. Can you turn the monitor down, please? Because you really want to rest a little bit, or try to get as much rest and or peace and quiet or whatever before you start doing the hard part of labor. Next thing I recommend, change positions frequently. So I recommend you continuously change positions. Don't stay in bed. I do not want you to stay in bed. Birthing ball, this is the 3rd time I'm mentioning it, so I want you to go get one if you don't have one already. And walk around as much as you can, as much as they allow you to. Walking around and changing position frequently, it encourages the progress of your labor. A lot of times your labor stalls because you're in bed and you're just laying there. So you want to just encourage progress. You don't want to have to take any unnecessary interventions. And that brings me into my next point, which is do not rush into any interventions. A lot of times the doctors are going to come to you and they're going to be like, oh, we want to try this, we want to do this. If it's an emergency, they won't ask you. I mean, they're going to have to talk to you about it, but they're going to tell you, we strongly urge you do this. We strongly recommend you do this. If they're coming to you and they're like, oh, maybe we should try this, that means it's not an emergency. So I say do not rush into any intervention. I suggest you know all about interventions, which if you are prepared, if you have read, if you have watched videos, you know a lot of these interventions, you know a lot of the risks, a lot of the benefits, and you are prepared in terms of that. Ask as many questions as you want. Be aggressive. If you are not an aggressive type of person, take someone to your labor with you that is. I had 2 aggressive people with me in my laboring room, my boyfriend and my mother. My mom has 4 kids, so she's been in labor. My boyfriend did a whole bunch of research on labor and interventions. We took classes together. If you feel like you're not going to be the type of person to speak up and just demand what you want and ask the right questions, you need to make sure you have someone who does. If you're going to get a doula, they're going to do a great job at avoiding interventions as long as possible. The next thing I recommend is stay hydrated. A lot of times in the hospital, once you're laboring, you can't eat. Well, they say you can't eat, but I do recommend you drink a lot of fluids, because the next thing they're gonna say is you're dehydrated, you need fluids. Walk with a straw. Make sure you have straws. Because you're going to be laying down or in weird positions, so a straw is just the easiest way for you to drink. In terms of actual labor, avoid tensing up during your contractions. So a lot of times we're having pain down here in your stomach area and you're like this. You see the tense in my face, in my shoulders, in my entire body, head to toe tenses up. You want to avoid that, because a lot of times, first off, you're causing yourself even extra pain than necessary, and second off, it's a stressor for your body and your baby. So you really want to just breathe through your contractions. Try to breathe, and this all comes with the practice stuff that I told you before. If you have practice relaxation techniques, then you'll be able to utilize those when these contractions are going on. My next recommendation is stay at home as long as you can. The recommended is 4-1-1, right? So if your contractions are every 4 minutes, lasting for 1 minute for an hour, then it's recommended that you go to the hospital. Of course, you know your body. So if you feel like something's wrong, something's going on, any changes, if your water breaks and it's not clear, all of these things are reasons that you need to go to the hospital immediately. But I do recommend you labor at home for as long as you possibly can, and that's another way for you to avoid unnecessary intervention. Another thing I recommend before leaving the house, if you are laboring at home, is take a warm shower. And I say that because when I took my shower when I was in labor, I wanted to stay in the shower forever. Like, I was in the shower for like an hour, and it made me understand why people do water birds, because it was so calming. Like, my back, like the water hitting against my back relieved a lot of the back labor I was going through. It relieved a lot of the contraction pain, and it just soothed me all around. It just all together soothed me. So I do recommend take a shower before you leave for the hospital, because more likely when you get to the hospital, they won't allow you to take a shower. The most important thing that I want to share, and as I said, my labor didn't go as planned, but I want you moms to avoid giving birth on your back. And the reason for this is because, first of all, our bodies work with gravity, okay, and naturally, if you're standing upright, and it's the same way that you take a poop when you are delivering a baby, it's the same way you take a poop. Do you take a poop laying down on your back?
Do you take a poop laying down on your back?
If you do, we need to have a talk. First of all, when you're laying down on your back, your pelvis is actually in a closed position. So that makes it hard for your baby to just come out. But if you're sitting up, if you're squatting, if you're kneeling down, if you're standing, even if you're on your side to an angle or anything like that, you're making it easier for your baby to just kind of slide out. And trust me, babies aren't sliding out. You still got to push a little bit. But yeah, so it's so important that you do not give birth on your back. And this also increases your back pain. I feel like, I mean, my back is still hurting me, and I had my child 8 weeks ago, almost 9 weeks ago. And you also increase your risk of tearing when you're giving birth on your back, because once again, you have to push against gravity. So it's so important. Try not to labor on your back. If you do not have to, do not do it. Another tip I have when you get to the hospital is requesting intermittent monitoring. And this also goes into my first video where I said you need to ask the type of monitoring that your hospital has. Even if your hospital does not have portable monitoring, you should be able to do intermittent monitoring unless there are some kind of complications happening with you or with your baby. So intermittent monitoring means that they put the monitor on, they check baby, then they take it off, they allow you to walk around, they allow you to change positions, they allow you to do things that you want to do, and then in an hour, then they put it back on, they check baby's okay, take it back off, same thing, same process. So make sure if they allow you, you opt for intermittent monitoring, not continuous, because continuous monitoring requires you to be in the bed for the entire labor. So that is the end of my video, guys. I hope that this video was helpful for anyone who is getting ready to go into labor, and just check out my other videos in my pregnancy playlist, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.